welcome to Let's Get Growing, and we're at the beginning of June I think by the time you watch this, and it's warmed up a bit. It's very pleasant outside. We still haven't had a lot of rain though, it keeps threatening, so everything's a little bit dry, but we're going to start today with your packs. So you've got 3 plants this time. So one of them is the chard. So chard it's like a hardy version of spinach. So it sort of withstands hotter and colder temperatures than spinach. Spinach has got a tendency to sort of bolt, what's called bolting, which means it runs to flower and seed and it's no longer any good for eating. So chard sort of withstands hotter temperatures, so it needs it quite fertile and it does need quite a lot of moisture, but this will keep us going through into winter if we look after this. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look. Now these have just been repotted, so I don't think I'm going to have to do anything with this at the moment. So it's not filled, it's pot, it's got loose compost around it. So we're just going to leave that and water it for the time being and keep an eye on its root system, which that's not its root system, around the base there. So the next plant you should have is a flat leaf parsley plant. So again, same principle. So you can see it's got this quite healthy root system. Parsley does have like quite big substantial roots. So I'm going to put it into the next size up pot. So I'm going to put a bit of compost in the bottom. I'm not going to disturb this. I'm going to turn it back, put it in the middle, put the compost around it. And that'll do a lot of good. Firm it down, put my label back in and give it a gentle water. And then the third thing you should have in your pot is honesty. So this is a wildflower. It's called Lunaria Annua. It's not actually an annual, it's a biannual, which means it takes 2 years to go from a seed to forming its own seed. So we've got some pictures of it here. So it's got this lovely pink flower in spring, and then later on in the year it forms these kind of green seed pods, which eventually, if you let them dry out, so you stake the plant and let them dry out on the plant, and you can peel them and you get this lovely silvery discs that are really nice in sort of flower displays, and it's really good for bees and butterflies, really good wildlife plant. So what I'm going to do with this, because it grows quite vigorously, is I'm going to put it in quite a bigger pot than I did for the parsley, but it's the same principle. I mean, we can check the roots, but I know that this needs repotting, so it's quite desperate for a repot. So with this one I would just kind of gently tease out some of these roots quite gently. And I'm going to fill my pot up. You could put it in the ground. Plant in the middle. And compost in around it. And I'm going to press it down. Put my label back in and then give it a nice water. So we're going to have a look at some of the things from previous packs here. So this is my Cayenne Pepper. We'll have a look. Just again, it's exactly the same principle. And I think that's just about filled its pot. So I'm going to put it in this nice deep pot. Some compost in the bottom, and a plant in the middle without disturbing it, and then the compost back around it. Exactly the same principle with all of these plants. A label and a little water. And then my Babington leek, which I still haven't really decided what I'm going to do yet because it's a perennial. So I'm going to probably pot this on. So it hasn't totally filled its pot, but I think it's got like one long deep root, so I think it would do it good to put it into a bigger pot, so that's what I'm going to do. These are the Perennial Leeks. I think you can just use them as like cut and come again. And then I had some snapdragons, which we grew from seed. I've got a lettuce growing in there as well. So I haven't really decided. I probably would make a planter up with these, but I think in the interim period, I'm just going to have a look again, see how they're getting on. Yeah, so that does need something doing with it. So I'm going to put them into this size pot, and then I probably will pop them on into planters. So if you've got plants you're not quite sure where the final destination is going to be, it is good to just keep potting them on. So I do that with all of these. Now the other things, coriander, it's tricky. So I think these have got too hot and too dry. So this one is starting. Can you see how it's grown quite tall there? So this one's bolted really, and these two aren't very far off it. So whether it's actually worth doing anything with them, I'm not sure. But what I'm going to do is we'll give them a chance. I'm going to put all three of them into a bigger pot. You see, this should have happened a lot sooner really. And I think they've just got too dry as well. See how pot bound they are. I'm composting around the three of them. Press them down. And then what I'm going to try and do to stop them from bolting, which may or may not be successful, is I'm going to cut the top off that, like that. And I think I'm going to do it with this one as well. See if we can generate, I'll do it with all three of them, see if we can generate a bit of leaf growth. It does tend to happen with coriander. Okay. Now the other thing is the basil, which looks very sad. I don't know. So I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to sacrifice these two and pull them out. And I'm just going to leave this one in here. I'll have a look. It can stay in there for a little while. It's not very happy though, it's gone quite discoloured. Maybe it's got too dry. And carrots, not many of them, not a huge success. So the tomato, I've got my tomato plant looking okay. So I've been taking out the side shoots. I've been a bit overzealous because I've got nothing to show you really. But it was these, we keep pinching these out in between the main stem and the side stem. But the one thing I haven't done, I do need to do, is to stake it. So I've got a cane. Push it in. Some twine. Now when you're tying them, don't do them too tight because they're going to get bigger. So we're just going to tie them quite loosely. So we've got, so that the main stem can bulk up a bit. Okay. And what I would be doing with this, and this applies to most plant pots really at this time of year, is well, the other thing I'm going to do is just take off some of these lower leaves. That's enough for now. So it's not just about watering plants, it's about feeding them. So when you've got plants in pots, and especially things like hungry feeders like tomatoes and potatoes, when you're watering them you tend to be washing out some of the nutrition. So potting compost will give you a few weeks sort of nutrition for your plants, but after that you need to be feeding them. So I've got some homemade plant feed, Comfrey. I'm going to show you a little bit more on that in a short while. But the important thing to do is to water your plant first, and then I'm going to dilute some of this in a watering can with some water and feed my tomato. I'll probably feed all of my plants. Right, let's go and have a look outside. So everything's doing pretty well out here. The potato's doing good. The angelica's been flowered and is now in lovely seed. We've got cosmos. The dwarf sunflowers are doing fine despite their early attack. The Viper's Bugloss Echium is starting to flower, and so is the calendula. And we've also got, not many, but a few broad beans already. Take my gloves off. So you want to pick them when they're quite firm and you can feel the beans inside them. Otherwise you'll just have a lot of pod. But these look good. There we are. We've got a few of them. And then round here, it's sweet pea flowering. Smells lovely. Some more beans here. It's good to pick them with two hands. These plants are already damaged anyway, so. So, we've got a little harvest. So the next thing I'm going to show you is Comfrey Brew. So get your pegs on your noses. Ta-da! That's nice fun. Passing out yet? So this is Stinky Comfrey Brew. So this is what we use to feed our plants with, and it's very, very smelly. And I'm just going to quickly show you how we make it. Okay, so Stinky Comfrey Brew. It's a really good food for plants because it's got all the nutrients that they need, the nitrogen and potassium. So this is comfrey basically. This is our comfrey patch which we grow for making plant food. So you can see that's its flowers. I think there's two different varieties here. So this is the area that I've cut already. This one I left for the bees because it's a fantastic bee plant, but now it's started to go to seed. So it's flowered and it's potentially got some seeds in there. Now I don't want this to spread everywhere in my plant pots because it is quite a vigorous plant. So I probably would just cut this down and let it regrow. So if I wanted to make some more food, there's not very much here really, but I probably would let it get a bit bigger. But then I would just get some shears, cut the leaves down. I'm going to put them in a bucket, put a brick on top of them, fill the bucket up with water, and hopefully put a lid on it because it is quite smelly, potent stuff. And yeah, that's it. And you can also use nettles. I tend to use nettles, but again it's got to be early in the season before they've seeded, because if you end up sort of making a plant food out of comfrey and nettles, with comfrey and nettle seeds in, you won't be very happy if your planters are all full of those plants, because they're very vigorous. So that's Comfrey Brew. So yeah. So I hope that's kind of covered it. If you've got any questions or you want to show off any of your plants, please do so on the Facebook page, and thanks for watching. Okay. happy gardening.